and it's valued at 1.8 as it sits right now. So we're sitting pretty right out the gate. But when it's all said and done, it's going to be a 17 or 18 million dollar project, and we'll clear around six or seven. We're thinking worst case. So we're getting into development.
Construction Owners Podcast, Episode 1. What's going on, everyone? Justin Ledford, your host of Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real owners of multi-million-dollar construction companies so you can go from being a stressed-out operator to becoming a real owner who achieves healthy profit margins and a thriving business without having to figure it out all on your own. Today, we have a very special guest named Ralph Locklear, owner of Southeastern General Contractors. He's extremely successful in building custom homes, completing highly profitable federal government construction contracts, and developing apartment complexes that give him seven-figure returns. If you listen all the way to the end, you'll get to hear how he uses cost escalation clause within his contracts to protect his company from ever-rising prices, and how he has mastered attracting his perfect ideal clients. Let's go. Welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview CEOs and see what's working in their business and help you guys grow your business. On our podcast today, we have a special guest, Ralph Locklear with Southeastern General Contractors. He builds custom homes, he does government contracts, and he's just an epic individual. Welcome, Ralph. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Man, I just want to first say thanks for hopping on. I know you're busy. You just finished that incredible modern barn build that I saw on your Facebook. That's one of the most beautiful homes I've ever seen in my entire life. And I want to dive right in. You know, we talked about we'll give our audience just a short background of how you got into building custom homes so they can kind of have an idea how you got started.
So I grew up in a family that was construction was all we did, you know. So in high school, anytime I was out during the summer months, instead of out getting in trouble, I was on job sites cleaning up job sites from the age of 12 years old. And each summer, that's what I did. After graduating high school, I got an associate's degree that introduced me to a vast array of different trades: electrical, plumbing, HVAC, blueprint reading, things of that nature. And eventually, my brother that framed custom homes kind of floated the idea about, hey, you know, you're smart enough, you know, why don't you, go about getting the contractor's license, the GC license, and, I'll help with whatever needs to be helped with on building your first few projects until you get some experience underneath your belt. And long story short, that's exactly what I did. I failed twice, taking the exam, but always been a persistent guy and passed the exam. It wasn't real until I knew I'd received the general contractor's license, and from there I just put a plan together. I wanted to know how to draw the plans. I knew that I was young. I was 23, 24 at the time. I knew my youth and inexperience was going to be a big crutch for me, so I learned how to design the plans myself. Went and worked with an architect. The goal was to be able to design the plans and offer my first custom build pretty much for free.
Wow.
Make an irresistible offer. And that's what I did. And landed my first project is $375,000 custom build back then in 06 or 05 or whenever that was. And my family and all told me, we come, because we're modest people, and they were like, hey, you might want to start out with maybe just $100,000 home or something, while you're jumping out there on a $375,000 home. So I said, if I failed, I wanted to fail quick. If it wasn't meant to be, I wanted to get it over with quick. But I learned a lot. The plan worked. And from there, I've just been building and growing ever since.
I love it. I see that you're really into personal growth. And that's one of the key attributes of successful contractors is they're always growing, they're always learning, and they're trying to take from other avenues, other people who are crushing it. And that's how you and I got connected. And right. I'm grateful that we're in the same world. Hey, tell us, I want our audience to know a little bit about you. What are some fun things that you like to do and fun ways you like to spend your money with your family?
Well, mostly it's going on trips. My wife is from Puerto Rico, so we often travel back there. We're in the process now of finally building our forever home, our dream home in Puerto Rico. We bought some land there. Got our plans designed, so we go there either once a year or every other year. We like to travel a lot. We like to spend money on experiences. The money we make, what we don't put back in the business. Mostly what we do for ourselves is either always traveling to different places, creating different experience, giving our children a different outlook on life. As a kid, I never got to travel much. And so, I try to do those type of things with my kids. And as far as recreational activities, what I enjoy most, I'm pretty much most people would probably say I'm a workaholic. I mean, I love my work. I mean, it's not many times you're going to see me just outside of work or something work related. And I'm learning to kind of get over that now. I'm 40 years old. And so I'm kind of turning a new chapter in my life. I love to play as far as sports. I like playing pool. I was really good at playing pool, playing billiards. So if I'm not working, if recreation, I'll be playing pool or out on the lake with my family, skiing or things of that nature. So finally getting into a season in my life to where I'm just starting to explore that, if you will.
I love it. That's awesome, man. I grew up playing sports myself, and the last 3 months I got into a men's league, hardball, fast pitch, wooden bat baseball league. It's intense and it brings back nostalgia, and it's fun to have something that you can do where you turn your phone off, and whether it's with family or friends. I love to hear that you're doing that, man. Talk about Puerto Rico for a little bit. There's some massive tax havens if you live out there for, I don't know, it's 150-ish days of the year. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, actually, we went through that whole process because our goal, we knew we were going to have to probably move back there because my wife's mom and dad is from there. She's from there. All our family's from there. So it's always been something we've known, but we didn't really act on until I started, after traveling back and forth. And every time I was there, I always put myself in a situation. How would I do here if I had to start a business here? What would be my angle? What would be my strategy? And of course, there's not as many opportunities there as there is here, but it started getting my wheels to turn. And I started doing a little bit of research, Google searching what was in the market. And then I came across, Act 20 and Act 21 and started just looking. I'm like, wait a minute, 2% taxes, 4% taxes. How many days do I need to stay here? How do we need? And so I got with a CPA, paid him in crypto actually to set it up for me.
That's awesome.
So he's in the crypto. He knows all about it, and he's guided us through the process. We've got our LLC set up there. Again, like I said, we've bought our land there. We've got our plan submitted. Just got our building permit actually the first of this week to start the plans. So we'll be breaking ground on the home there probably within a month or so, I would imagine.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
the tax advantages is crazy. For an example, I ran some rough numbers, and just as well as I do, and anybody else that's in business, on capital gains tax. I don't know all the ins and outs because there's all kind of ways you can kind of like look at it, but from and I'm not really trying to take advantage of that with the construction side. My construction business is here, it's based here, but what I am doing is the online coaching, consulting, or whatever I'm doing with that. All of that will be based over in Puerto Rico and will qualify for that Act 60, which is a 2 to 4% tax rate versus a 20 to 30 to possibly 40% tax rate. And you have to be there half of the year, and it doesn't have to be consecutively. You can travel back and forth, and so there's ways you got to figure that out because we aren't living there full time, but we will be traveling back and forth and meeting those requirements. Things of having Puerto Rico driver's license, having property, being able to actually prove that you are there, that you are a resident there, is the main thing. But the tax incentives for people like us that are in business, once you start really looking at it, depending on the amount of money you're bringing in, it's almost an irresistible offer to pass up, especially if you got family there. Yeah,
it truly is. I mean, the guy who has podcast Entrepreneur on Fire, he makes millions of dollars a month. He lives there because they don't have to pay taxes on it. It's an online business. My life insurance agent lives there half the year. He's the guy that we do infinite banking through. We have a self-directed insurance fund where we basically are now our own bank. That's something we could talk about if you haven't set that up. That's a genius way to make money off your own money instead of just setting it in the bank. So moving forward, I just want to talk to you and ask you, what's a goal that you've accomplished that made you really proud?
Well, for me, I've always had a situation where when I was presented with certain opportunities, just a mental block that I had, I didn't have really anyone to look to coming up in business that could give me high level advice. You know what I mean? I didn't have like millionaire family members that was in business. And so anytime I was presented with a really good opportunity, my natural instincts was to turn it down. I would find 10 reasons why I couldn't do it versus trying to just find one reason why I could. And so a project that we're working on now is ending up, it'll be like a $5 million project. And I almost sabotaged my own self from even getting that project, kind of for the same thing, because I'm used to doing custom homes, which I've learned is one of the most complicated things that you can do. Now that I've gotten into government work, doing commercial work, I realized if you can do custom homes at a high level and keep that industry happy, those clients happy with all those moving parts, government work, commercial work is an absolute breeze. But I referenced the $5 million home build to a $5 million custom commercial build, and I almost passed on it. And now that I'm 60-70% complete with it, it's mind blowing. The amount of time that it takes me to do a $600,000 house, $700,000 house, with the amount of time, energy, effort, and resources it takes to do that, it only takes a fraction of those same resources when you're doing commercial and government work. And so the biggest breakthrough I've had was making that shift and like learning how to serve those three markets, learning how to position ourselves to where we could, still do the custom homes without giving them up, because thankfully we built a system and had all these years to kind of perfect it to where we can know who our ideal client is and only service a few of them, but still make the same margins that we were making doing 10 projects, but free up our time to where we can't take on these commercial jobs and
Love it,
take on these
man.
government jobs.
That's
So
beautiful. The thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what you're saying is so true. I have to shine some light on that. You said yes. You analyzed the opportunity. You were kind of hesitant at first, but you just said yes. And you found
right.
mentors along the way. And now that you're about to get done with that, what kind of income you think you'll make from that?
Just on that project there, the one I was referencing, the commercial project, you're anywhere from 1.3 to 2 million,
Love it.
just depending on how well we do on the final ends. And another thing I'll say with that too, as far as one of the biggest lessons learned, is in this market, we were smart enough to put cost escalation clauses in and harden and not back down off of that, because sometimes when you're negotiating, people will go like, I'll tell you what they wanted to do. That's like, okay, we'll agree to this price, which was a higher price, but we don't want no escalation and we don't want no contingencies. And me being a nice guy and a people pleaser for most of my career, I would normally always kind of, because, I try to find a middle ground, but I've learned there's sometimes in business, you don't have to be, I never wanted to be a mean guy in business or whatnot, but I've had to learn my own way to where I will say, nope, that's a deal breaker. You and I both know that in this market, it would be an absolute idiotic move for me to agree to go build any kind of project, knowing good and well nobody can hold prices. You know that, I know that. So,
Yep.
if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your guy, and be willing to walk away.
Sounds like you've become really good at having crucial conversations, which is an epic book that teaches contractors how to have difficult conversations up front with their clients, so you don't have to have difficult conversations later. And cost escalation within your contract. What are some of your verbiage for cost escalation within your contract that our contractors can learn from?
I could actually share some of the exact verbiage, but I'll tell you what I found to be most important when I will never have these conversations with folks unless I'm on a Zoom call to where I don't send it to them and let them read it on their own. Is the first thing. I will get on a phone call with them if I can't meet them in person, and I will actually go over these crucial conversations with them while we're kind of face to face. Because what can happen is you can lose a deal based on how you might have something worded, and if they read it and take it a certain way and may get offended, by it. So the first thing we do is we'll set up a time to go over it. Mainly, it just states the obvious that we're agreeing to a price of X amount of dollars. It's here and now, but we all know in the conditions of COVID and supply chain issues, and it states the obvious that as price goes up, our price is going to go up. And the conversation can go in a few different ways. Sometimes it goes the way of wanting to do a cost plus contract. I don't necessarily like doing those, only for the simple fact of I'm not used to doing them. And the fact that, I'm in a builders group also where there's 20 of us, and some builders do, some builders don't do cost plus contracts. But, it just starts. I've heard horror stories where it gets lost. Everybody wants to get down in the weeds about, well, gas receipts, and you're billing this to my job, but you had 6 other jobs going on, and then it can just become a convoluted mess. So I've stayed away from that, but the conversations will sometimes wants to go that route. What I will tell my clients when we start having those conversations is that, we both know costs are going to increase. I like to throw the worst case out there right out of the gate, make people feel uncomfortable with the worst case and give them a reason to say no fast.
Yep.
For whatever reason, people's not used to that. At least in my market, that's not the norm. So it works to my favor. I risk possibly losing the deal, but they'll never be able to say that I haven't been honest with them. And I've never been the type of person to tell somebody what they want to hear for the sake of just getting along. So I will tell them the worst case scenario, and I'll paint a picture of, hey, we all know that costs have increased 30%. Our construction costs are increasing 20 to 30% year over year. So if we're at $1 million right now, it takes us a year to do this project. We automatically build in a 10% buffer upfront that we agree to. That's a non-negotiable also. And I'll tell people at the end of the project, what we'll probably see is that you've already agreed to pay a 10% buffer upfront. You may be having to come out of pocket another 10%, possibly 15 to 20. And that's when the sticker shock comes in. And they're like, so you're telling me, I said, that is a real possibility. And here's the thing. I'm hoping you appreciate the fact that I let you know this before you ever sign a contract, because now you know the worst case scenario. And I don't want you to sign this because it ain't necessarily as much about the money with me and our team as it is you being comfortable and knowing full well what we're getting into up front. So when we do have those crucial conversations, you already know. And when something does happen that we didn't plan for, I'm hoping that you'll look back and see, hey, I know these guys' intentions are well because they told me this up front, but there's going to be things we can't anticipate that may affect the price. But now you know who we are and how we operate because we're telling you all this up front, and most people, and I understand it, would walk away. But in the environment that we're building in, the only way we're going to move forward is if we're comfortable with those terms. So when we are building in those prices of that steel decking, that metal decking, those I-bar joists go from, $100 a piece to $180 a piece. We don't like it, but we've planned for it. We've budgeted for it, and we're able to move. I tell people then is that, do you want to start a project and run the risk of not being able to complete it all because of a contractor told you, the best case scenario? That's the way I've learned to position the escalation clause. So I'm not necessarily talking so much and reading the verbiage of the escalation clause as I am telling stories about what can go wrong, what will go wrong. And if they still, and I've had a couple that would still say, I understand what you're saying, Ralph, I get it, but I don't want to spend X amount of dollars more than this. I'm like, well, you're basically asking me to take on the risk and possibly fund this job for you. And we're not in business to do that. I'm sorry, but I'm not your guy for that. And, you win some, you're going to lose some, but the ones you do win, you're completely protected.
And let's unpack that a little bit. Don't just send it to them. You make sure you're face to face with them, or you're on a Zoom call because you want to see their facial features, their body language. That's brilliant. Because too many contractors they're just sending out estimates and they wonder why they're not getting a lot of deals. We're the same. We close at the kitchen table or we close on a Zoom call. So Moving forward, what would you say is one of the riskiest jobs that you've ever taken on, and some of the breakthroughs that came about that when you succeeded and finished it?
Yeah, first one comes to mind would be a massive addition that we did. Massive meaning like in our market, most home additions is only, you know, 100 grand, 150 grand. And this particular addition ended up breaking over $1 million on a home addition. With the reason why it was so risky is hindsight, I didn't do all the things that I should have done that I would have done now on that particular project, meaning making sure the client and ourselves was an ideal fit for one another, making sure that on additions, I've learned it's very hard to accomplish our goal of having clients love us before, during, and after the process, mainly because they're in the operating room. And I found it's almost impossible. I'll never say something's impossible, but I will say that's probably one of the closest ones that I will say is almost impossible, is to have people happy with you when you've got their house torn apart and they're trying to live in it. No matter how much explaining you do to them, no matter how much agreements you have and prep them for it, the fact of it takes longer than what it should, even if you do a good job of sectioning off the new versus the part that's being added on, they're in the surgery room and they're seeing that surgery in its worst situations, and they're Googling and they're searching, and their, you know, anxiety's at a high level. And if someone leaves, you know, paper cups or what, it's the littlest of things that can turn what I call molehills into mountains. And I had that, and I did it with $1 million one. So it was amplified times 10 with the client that I didn't realize that we just were not a good fit. I'm an easygoing guy, but there's a certain point to where, like most of us contractors, it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. And we go to a level that we don't want to go to. And it literally got to be that point almost on a weekly basis. In our area, you know, and I'm pretty sure in all you guys' area, construction workers are a different breed. You know what I mean? Some of them are felons. They ain't, you know, they ain't going to walk in with a suit and tie. There ain't no certain finesse with them. And I had made the mistakes of allowing the client on the job site while the work's being done. They're living in it. They're interacting with the trades and the subs. And I got some pretty rough characters on the job site. So the owner wants to be there and interject. And he's an alpha mentality, special forces guy. Ooh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, I had a recipe for a freaking disaster, and it turned into a disaster because alpha client over here, alpha construction team over here, he don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's trying to instruct the team, and I'm trying to be the mediator. And it got to a point one day to where I won't say what all was said, you know, here, but it was like, hey, Mr. Client, listen, we need to talk. And I had to pull him to the side, and he was cursing, and this is my project, and I was like, listen, let me tell you where we're at. This is your project. This is your home. I am your builder. I am your guy. But number one, you ordered a specialty item that's getting installed, and we're following the manufacturer's recommendations. Now, which one do you want us to do? Do you want us to follow your recommendations or the manufacturer's recommendations? And I don't want you talking with the trade. So
you don't want them.
Yeah, I told him I didn't want him talking to the trades. I'm like, because I understand, and I can imagine probably what you've seen being a special forces guy, being the war, and you know, I imagine you've seen some pretty tough stuff and, you know, gory stuff. And I don't want my construction site to turn into one of those war zones that you're probably used to. I said, the way you're going about talking to people, your body language, your aggressiveness, your tone, it's going to turn into a nightmare. And I'm like, we got two options. You can either let me handle this, or I will use my cancellation for convenience clause, and I'll refund you what's appropriate, and you can take over this job and run it yourself. Now,
that's genius. Cancellation for convenience clause. Never even heard of that.
Yeah, so that's another thing we've learned in this, you know, in this type of environment, is giving the owner, he's got the right to cancel for convenience too. But we as the builder have the right to cancel for convenience. And we lay out what is the terms if we want to cancel for convenience. And you know, and it got to the point to where that's where I learned mainly on that project and a few more, how to structure these deals up on the front end. First of all, identify if we're a good fit for one another. So we have a complete questionnaire now that before I even meet with someone, they got to go online. They got to complete an orientation process that we've created that says all the exact same things that I would say to them in person without having to do it over and over and over again. We've automated that. And if they don't sit down and take the time with and go through and answer all those questions and watch the videos, they're not able to set up a calendar, appointment to meet with us. And then if they do that, we will actually sit down with them, do a Zoom call or in person, and review their orientation. And actually, there's normally some possibilities of we might not be a good fit, but let me ask you about this. And then we'll make the judgment call in that meeting if we are a good fit. But I didn't learn that until I went through that disastrous project to where, we were about to have UFC events on the job site with some of the trade contractors and with
popping elbows.
Yeah. But, to summarize that deal, we finished it. It was we accomplished the goal, but it was a major task. And I think even with that client, he was so used because of his personality, and most people couldn't just had the wherewithal to deal with him all the way through it. But we did it. Even his neighbors was like, man, they asked us to do some more projects in the neighborhood. I turned them down. They're like, well, if you can deal with such and such, our project's going to be a breeze. So everybody knew. They were like, man, this contractor is going to have a time on his hand dealing with that kind of project with this type of client. But it was those struggles that I look back on. Don't mean I want to go through them again, but I needed them. And I see kind of how like God works is to teach us those lessons. Because if you learn the lessons that you need to learn and you put yourself in a position where you can take the blows and still move forward, there's a reason why there's only 1%. There's a reason why there's only a 5% or 2%. And you have to go through those experiences and learn what you need to know to position yourself to where you can do better and grow and learn the lessons to operate at a higher level. And that was my most challenging project. I lost my temper a few times, lost money on some of the things, but the overall value of the lesson that project taught me has now set me up to a point to where I can pick and choose. And I can be comfortable knowing that I'm picking the right clients, and they can feel comfortable knowing that they've got the right builder. I would have never been able to get to that point without that project.
I'm glad no hammers were thrown, no nail guns were shot at the homeowner. That's good to hear, man. So one of the things that you've talked about, and I really want to learn, and I want my audience, guys, contractors, listen closely to this. Ralph is an expert at identifying his perfect client. Can you give us some insights how you do that? Because you're dealing with customers that are giving you $1 million+ to build custom homes. How do you identify your perfect client? What are the surveys? What are the things you do to have your perfect avatar client hire you?
Well, for us, I think every business might be a little bit different, but for us, it's the fact that we're living in a busy world. Everybody's so distracted. We don't have time or much time at all to do a whole lot of things. Everything's about convenience. Now, what I'm going to say is going to sound kind of contrary or controversial or whatnot, but I've learned to deliberately rock the boat, deliberately rock it, meaning to the point to where from the very start, to get someone to take an hour of their time to go watch videos. Now, granted, they're coming to us wanting to spend money with us. So they're coming from a mindset is that, hey, you should be catering to me. Yep. You should be, you're trying to get in my pockets and stuff. So what I've learned to do is I've learned to test people early on to see what type of person they are. We're building for people. It takes over a year. In COVID time, it takes way longer than a year now to get the whole process done. So we spend a lot of time with them. It's very important to make sure that we're going to get along well. Everybody puts on a certain face when they meet you, and they deliberately choose which face to show you. And if you're not careful, they're going to show you the best face. I'm more concerned about what's it going to look like when we are not in agreement. What's it going to look like when we have surprises? How are you going to treat me when the fact that you have leverage over me, and vice versa? The only way I figured out how to do that is to create scenarios where people have to answer those questions, those similar type of questions up front. So this orientation process, every funnel that we do, whether people come through Messenger, a phone call, or a website, they all get funneled to our orientation process, where they are essentially watching a webinar with a lot of questions that they have to ask. They have to answer after we ask them. And depending on how they answer those questions will tell us if they are our ideal client. Some of the questions aren't even related to construction, and that throws a lot of people off. See, I've deliberately created our process to where you really don't know what the angle is on how we ask those questions. We've got questions like, trying to think of some of the good ones that kind of tells you the personality of the person. And one of them at the end, I end it with, I do a lot of role playing. I ask them to do a lot of role playing when I carry them through those situations. And I'll ask them to role play. We're sitting across the table from one another, and there's a glass of water on it. The glass is midways. Is that glass half filled or half empty, and why? Now, when we meet with people after they do orientation, they will ask me, hey, there's a lot of questions on there that have me like, what does that got to do with construction? And I'll be honest, I said, the reason those questions are to help me identify your personality. What's your outlook on life? I'll ask people the questions, something along the lines, as of right now, from a scale to 1 to 10, how happy are you with your life right now? Nothing to do with construction. But like you mentioned before, a lot of what we do as business owners isn't, for me, construction's the easy part. I can do that easy. It's wood, it's concrete. You can fix anything, but what you can't fix is a relationship that's not meant to be. And so for me, it's more about getting to know who that person is, how they process things, how they do conflict resolutions, how happy they are with their life. One of my mottos when I first started out in business, and if you go back and watch some of our videos, you'll hear it. Making clients happy is our number one goal. Sounds great. The problem with that is I had to learn the hard way. You can't make unhappy people happy, no matter how much you try or how much money you're willing to lose. The only bad review that we've got when you go research us online is from a client that I paid $75,000 for, thinking and agreeing that we were going to be at a level playing ground. So this was a build that clients weren't happy with me. Some of it justifiable, some of it not. But instead of going back and forth and running the risk of going to court, and I didn't have things buttoned up the way I have it now, there was $75,000 that we were supposed to be billing for change orders. But a lesson that a lot of people probably have already learned, and that build I didn't learn, is I didn't get the change orders up front. I carried it to the end. And at the closing table, guess what? Guess what was the contentious part of the whole closing? So long story short, we agreed to just forget about the change orders with the agreement that would make us whole, that everybody's happy. And they agreed, they signed, and you know what? I thought we were good. I said, well, that's a $75,000 lesson I got to learn there. And then about a month later, I wake up to this review.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, wow. So yeah, I paid for paid 75 grand for our only bad review.
Oh, that's a lesson. That's a lesson.
Yeah. And when I talk about, being able to take the hits and still move forward, there's quite a few stories like that that has happened to us that, we've just had to kind of like learn from our mistakes, but make sure that we button that up moving forward. And that's been a repetitious pattern to get to where we're at now for, ever since we started business.
Ralph, talk to me, man. I want to know, what are your goals for 2022? What are some of your goals you're aiming for that you're going to hit?
So construction wise, this is going to be our best year ever. We are doing a 93, 94 possibly unit townhouse development. We found an awesome deal. We went out and bought the land. It was a development that had already started. Unfortunately, the original developer passed away. He only completed part of phase 1. We went in and scooped up that property at a really good deal. And we're getting ready to break ground on that here in the next month or so. We're going to start completing phase 1. Essentially, we scooped up that property for around $700,000, and it's valued at 1.8 as it sits right now. So we're sitting pretty right out the gate. But when it's all said and done, it's going to be a $17 or $18 million project, and we'll clear around six or seven. We're thinking worst case. So we're getting into development neighborhoods.
Nice.
We're partnering up with other trades kind of behind the scenes, site work. We have 30% stake into a site development company now behind the scenes. So we're kind of expanding and growing, taking the business acumen now that we've gathered throughout these years of working in what I call the most challenging environment of custom home building. And we're being really smart and strategic now to do more with less by seeing other contractors who are up and coming, who has potential, and then going in and eitherwise helping back them in the, like I said, with the site development company, finding opportunities and finding this development, scooping it up. Southeastern, our company is going to be the builder for it. We created another development company that we're operating kind of independently, but one hand kind of washes the other on that deal. So we've got the townhouse development. We're doing government construction projects as well, ones we can get in and out of really quickly and make some nice money and keep clients happy on that end. Commercial projects, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, pretty much mimicking what we're doing on the residential, with hand selecting which clients we want to do. So this year is projected to be our best year. We're coming from where we do like 5 million, 6 million, 8 million with the custom home stuff that we've been doing. But we're moving in the neighborhoods of doing 15, 20, 30 million. And when this government stuff really pops off, I'm now getting my bonding to the point where I can take advantage of the larger contracts. We've partnered up with a Hawaiian native tribe. So, government contracting, the doors that's going to open up, unlimited projects, unlimited sole source opportunities. So that's kind of like what the future looks for us, and the biggest challenge we're having right now is just finding hungry, entrepreneurial type people that sees these opportunities and willing to come in on board and, fulfill a certain role and grow this thing with us. That's our challenge right now.
I'm going to share this with my network. Hopefully we have individuals who are entrepreneurial that'll be watching and say, I want to come work for that guy, because you really are a rock star. You're doing development, and eventually it sounds like you're going to be able to do syndication deals. I have networks that can fund these deals, and we can do some big things. And talk about government construction.
You were one of the first people who listened to me and allowed me to be your guide in the government construction realm, and you landed a few contracts.
Give our audience, a little taste of what type of job you did and what kind of profit they can make by doing government work.
Man, I'll tell you, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. For whatever reason, I can't even tell you the exact reason why I started looking at federal contracts. I would hear somebody talk about it here and there, but I am Native American and I've heard about the perks and all that. So it's something I've been working on for a while, but it wasn't until I came across your Facebook ad, I think it was, when you were talking about, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm already set up, but I wasn't doing anything with it. I did the legwork, got set up, but I just really hadn't been exploring it because, I've got construction over here going on, and I was already pretty much busy and content with what I was doing. Then I saw your course and I'm like, okay, so I can sit at home. I can kind of like look at this on my off hours and get more familiar. And I followed what you were showing on that and reached out and did a few of the steps, and got my first deal. Was a simple project. It was backfilling a pool, a swimming pool on a government base. And they wanted it backfilled until like 10 or 12 inches, and the rest of it being backfilled with gravel. It was I forgot, $60,000-$70,000 job is what we negotiated. And it costed me roughly 20-ish. And I was done in 4 days. And I was worried because in my experience, it's like, this doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? I'm making more money putting dirt in a hole than I'm making building some custom homes. And, but the relationship part of what I learned with the custom home pays dividends, because what I found, these government contracting officers, they were willing to help, and they knew where I was coming from. Yeah. And they were like, I'm like, well, hey, I didn't know whether to try to stretch the job out further, but I was like, there's no way. I mean, compared to what I'm used to, there's no way I'm going to be able to stretch that out and justify it. And my contracting officer was like, listen, the contract's the contract. The quicker you get it done, the quicker you're in and out. We don't care. As long as you follow the scope of work and da-da-da-da. So I made the most money, I'll say, in the shortest amount of time with happy clients, which is my goal, than I'd ever made building a custom home.
Man, I love to hear that.
It just opened up my eyes to be like, you know what? This is amazing. And the thing I'm finding out now is I've did 4 or 5 other projects like that, and it's been the same thing. As long as you know how to submit the paperwork, the AHA forms, the OSHA forms, and you get that admin. I'll tell contractors this. Here's my thing. You get you a person who's really good at the admin stuff. I got a lady at the office rock star. She handles all that. That's the hardest part, is the paperwork. And making sure you have good people skills with your project manager and your contracting officers. But it literally helped set me up to the point to where I would have had to double my workload on the custom homes, which would have put a major strain on me, versus taking on these smaller government projects that I was in and out with. It wasn't complicated at all, and make more profit doing that. So it allowed me to start doing these other things.
Yep. You know, I love that you say that. So many people want to get into government contracts and they want to go after the $1 million deals, and that's fine. But I teach people to go after the $0 to $250,000 goal jobs, because those are the ones you can get it in and out. The huge big companies, they're not bidding them, and you can make money quickly. I mean, I did a $115,000 solar deal. Took me a week. The subs paid for everything. I made 70 grand, and I got to take a vacation to New Mexico. And all I did was take photos at the job. So I love that you're a student. Ralph, you're one of my favorite people to mastermind with, talk with, and we're going to do big things together. Before we go, tell our audience what you're working on, some things. I know you have a course, you're going to be teaching some things, and tell our audience or people who are entrepreneurial who might want to work with you, how they can get in touch with you.
So yeah, I've one of the things that's been on my vision board is Contractors Academy. You know, something that's been there for a while. And essentially what my goal is with that is that, again, I've been doing this for 18 years, and I've done it the absolute, probably the hardest way possible that it is to be done. My goal is to be the mentor that I wish I would have had when I first started, right? If I would have had a mentor that would have said, of course, it's not going to be for free, but Ralph, listen, I got 18 years of experience. Let me tell you, here's where you're going. Here's what you're going to run into. And here's the statistics of you failing. And by the grace of God, I've made it. But your chances are you're going to fail without the right mentorship, without the right help. And I'm willing to be that mentor for you. I wish I would have had someone like that. In today's world, you can do that quite easily by offering Zoom calls, coaching, courses, templates, estimating templates, contracts, all those things that you're going to need to be successful. My goal is to have a online coaching business, to where I give people, I shorten that learning curve, that path from starting to success, and teaching them all the things. I got a passion for teaching. I love it. I'd help for free. And probably when money's no problem, I'll do it all for free. But right now, I got a goal for my family, leaving a legacy. Unfortunately, it involves making money. And, I'm going to offer that at a certain price, and give everybody the kind of the keys to the kingdom as far as what I've done, and show them all the shortcuts, and hopefully be a blessing to them, to where I can replicate the same thing on that side of things, where people are happy to pull out that credit card, because the value they're getting in return for all the insight, all the shortcuts, all the tools, and being able to go from, say, 0 to 100 grand, and shortening, 100 grand in profit in record time. And that's what I'm working towards. It's not ready yet. Building it out. But
when will it be ready? When will it be
my
ready?
My goal is to have it ready by the end of August. I've got the projects that I've got working on that I fully committed to. And as soon as I get, I've closed out the projects you just saw, I've got 2 more to close out. And then that's moving up on the priority list to get it out. And the first course will be how to attract, how to identify, how to attract, and how to close your ideal clients automatically before you ever meet with them. That's the quickest thing that I could show anyone how to do. And I've got a system that I can copy and duplicate, and show any contractor how they can customize it to their own business. And it's just basically a copy and paste deal. I'm going to show them how to make their own videos. Or for a lot of contractors, we're going to also offer it to where myself or one of our team members will make the videos for them, so they can have a hands-off approach. That'll be a premium cost, of course, but the idea is to get them a system to where they can just direct their leads to there, and it pre-qualifies them automatically for them.
I love that. So lastly, Ralph, how can our audience get a hold of you if they're looking to get that course, or maybe they want to come work with you and get these government contracts once you have that Hawaiian set aside? Yeah,
so you could, my primary method of communication, my phone number directly, I'll give out my direct phone number for anyone who wants to call me. It's 910-474-66 6778. Shoot me a text message first, kind of do an introduction, quick overview of what the conversation will be about. Or you can message me on Messenger, Raphael Locklear on Facebook. You can find me there and then shoot me a Facebook Messenger message there. And we can connect either way, phone call, text message, or Messenger.
Contractors, you heard it here on Real Construction Owners Podcast. This is Raphael Locklear with Southeastern General Contractors. He's an 8A certified contractor doing federal government's contracts in the Carolinas. So if you're a subcontractor, or if you're looking to work with him, or if you're looking to maybe do business with him, or whenever he releases his home building course, he's a great resource. Ralph, thanks for being a student of construction. It makes me so happy. And I want to thank you for being on this podcast today, brother.
So more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Peace.
All right, later.